At 12:03 a.m., the library alarms began to speak, with the voice of a librarian who has never worked here. Tonight we archive what they said. 10 stories from a single campus lockdown, the rules we learned, and the doors we never opened. Chapter 1. The Library. I was the last one in the North Library. The kind of quiet that pushes on your eardrums until you hear your own pulse. I was 3 floors up, back where the carpet stops being carpet and starts being static. I'd been there for hours sorting the folklore archive. Anonymous donations, spiral notebooks with the same shaky designation, found near the river. At 0003, the fire alarm clicked. Not the siren, just a throat-clearing click, like a microphone checking itself. And then it said, "Please proceed to the nearest exit." Calm. Adult. A voice that sounded like a librarian fighting a cold. I looked around. No lights, no strobe. The lamp at my table hummed, and the exit sign by the stairwell bled a tired red. The system repeated it, exactly the same cadence, the same breath. "Please proceed to the nearest exit." I stuffed my notes in my bag, went to the rail. Below me, the first floor turnstiles rotated on their own, one smooth half-turn, then stopped like someone changed their mind. On the second floor, a book fell, flat, dead sound. I told myself it was air conditioning. On the third repeat, the voice flubbed a syllable. "Please proceed," like it caught in its throat. I wanted it to be a glitch. Glitches do not notice you noticing them. This voice did. On the fourth, it changed the sentence. "Please proceed to the nearest exit, if you can see it." The exit sign at the far end of the row dimmed to a dull bruise. The one behind me brightened. I took a step toward the bright one. The voice said, "Not that way." I half jogged. The stacks narrowed, the smell of old glue turning sweet and metallic. Something whispered in the shelves, paper sliding against paper, thousands of pages turning at once. I can't swear to it, but I think the pages were reading themselves. Syllables hissed like steam. Titles I didn't know answered back. The stairwell door was cool under my palm. And in that second, the alarm tried a different tone. A child's voice, maybe lifted from a safety video. "Hold the handrail." It was friendly, rehearsed. I put my hand on the rail and it burned cold, not heat, cold like copper in January. Down on one, a light stuttered. There were footprints on the landing, wet, bare, too small to be mine. The wetness smelled like the river. On the last flight, something breathed in time with me. Not behind, not ahead, in the rail. The metal ticked under my skin like a soft shiver. "Please proceed," it said, the child's voice now struggling to stay unchanged. "If you can see it." The lobby was a maze of red beacons, exit signs over doorways that didn't exist, glowing above blank drywall and vending machines. The real doors were dark. I walked towards the brightest one, and as I got closer, the letters slid on their panel, not flipping, just swimming. EXI, then EXIT, then EX, like the sign was practicing spelling. I picked the darkest door. It had no sign at all. I pushed and wind knifed my face. Chapter 2. Boiler Room Rule Number 3. They say heat rises, but the cold down there had a mind of its own. It globed around your ankles like a cat that didn't want you to move. I was helping facilities because my work-study hours ran out, and the night supervisor, Mr. Innocent, said they could use an extra set of hands. Just hands, no questions. The boiler room sits under everything old. The chapel, the original dorm, the theater with the seats that fold like stern mouths. We walked through corridors lined with doors too low for grown adults, doors the size of winter. Innocent carried a clipboard he never looked at. He kept touching his wedding ring like it was a compass. He told me there were 3 rules. The first, never tap on the pipes to check flow. He said the pipes remember patterns, and they like to be remembered. When they recognize you, they call you back. The second, if you hear someone walking above you, stop and let them finish. They might not be above you. They might be in the pipe where sound moves like a train. The third he didn't say. He stopped in front of a valve wheel with flaking red paint and a tag that used to read "Lock Out, Tag Out," but now read "Lock and Out." We bled a line. We checked a gauge that fogged on one side but not the other. Something in the distance clanked in 3s. Innocent froze. He held up a palm and mouthed, "Singles only." The pipes clanked again. 3 beats, a pause, 3 beats. He tapped his boot heel once in reply. The clanking settled into a slow drip like a metronome tired of keeping time. "Third rule," he said finally. "If they talk in singles, don't answer in pairs." I laughed because it felt like a setup. He didn't smile. He went to the panel and flipped a breaker. The bulbs blinked. Somewhere deeper, 2 knocks sounded. A reflex I didn't know I had made me answer with 2 taps of my own. The room breathed in. Innocent grabbed my wrist so hard my bones crackled. "Singles," he whispered. "We stay in singles." He knocked once, hard, the way a person would say enough to a child without using the word. The 2-knock pattern returned, closer. It felt like it moved under our boots, through our laces, up our bones. It asked, not words exactly, who was down here. I pictured the line of tiny doors we'd passed and understood that asking was a way of making a door in your chest. Innocent turned the red wheel half a bite, and a sound like a held breath turned sideways filled the room. The 2-knock thing lost its cadence. It went back to 1. 1. 1. I wrote the numbers down even though they meant nothing. We left without turning our backs because the cold down there hugs your ankles so you'll forget they're yours. Back upstairs, Innocent handed me a laminated card with only the number 3 on it. "Keep this," he said. "If you hear pairs, you show it the 3. I asked what that even meant. He said, "They count us. We count back." Weeks later, after the lockdown, a pipe burst under the old theater. The photos in the incident report show a neat hole punched through a cast iron elbow, round as a thumbprint. You can see the inside of the pipe like a throat. The caption says, "Fatigue failure." The rumor says something down there finally found a pair big enough to answer. Chapter 3, Dorm 6B, The Mirror in the Hall. I lived in 6B, the end-of-hall single with the window that glared at the parking lot lights like a headache. Everyone in our wing knew about the mirror. It was a rectangle older than the paint, a little fogged at the corners like someone's breath got stuck there and couldn't decide whether to leave. It started as a game, walking past at night and trying not to look. The game ended when Amaya stopped short one Saturday and said, "I think I forgot my hoodie," and her reflection, already 2 steps beyond, shook its head no. We tried blame it on sleep, blame it on caffeine. Then the RA put painter's tape around the mirror and wrote, "Do not approach between 2 o'clock and 2:10. The tape helped the same way telling a story isn't scary helps. We still looked. The mirror looked back the way a pond does, with interest, but not your kind. On lockdown night, phones went DD with the shelter-in-place push alert. I propped my door open because the hinges complain if I don't. There's comfort in shared air, even if it's stale. The hall was quiet except for Ferreira in 6D crying in a way that meant she wasn't alone. The mirror held the exit sign glow like a wound. 201. And then the smelling salts feeling, the one you get before a nosebleed, bloomed behind my eyes. The mirror showed the hall as a tiny fraction wider. Not much, just enough that the baseboards didn't quite line up with the real ones. At 2:03, a pair of shoes went past in the reflection. White sneakers with a star on the heel. No one in the hall. At 2:04, a girl-shaped absence crossed. Not black exactly, more like a subtraction that made everything around it brighter. At 2:07, I saw myself. I knew the way I walk, the half-crooked elbow from the time I broke it. My reflection walked past, looked right into my open door, and smirked like it wanted to see if I'd flinch. My real face did not smirk. My door closed on its own as if pushed by a draft. My reflection kept walking and vanished into where the elevator would be if the hall were longer. Someone knocked at 2:08. Very polite. 2 taps. A breath. 1 tap. I knew the rhythm of our wing. That wasn't ours. The peephole showed an empty corridor in both worlds, the real one and the mirror one. Then, slowly, my reflection came back the opposite way, now carrying a hoodie I haven't owned since high school, red with peeling white letters. It stopped at my door and held the hoodie up like proof of something. I kept my hand off the handle. The knock came again, very gentle. 1, 2. And my reflection mouth-formed a sentence I couldn't hear. The glass fogged at the corners and the fog edged toward the middle like frost. Someone down the hall muttered a prayer I didn't know. The reflection of the exit sign flickered to EXI, and then back. At 2:10 exactly, my reflection shrugged like I had wasted its time, folded the hoodie over its arm and stepped sideways into a seam where the baseboard misaligned. It was gone. The hall was just a hall again. The tape around the mirror had bubbled like it got hot. In the morning, the RA wrote a new note. If your reflection comes without you, let it pass. Don't call after it. Someone had underlined "don't" so hard the paper broke. I threw away my spare key, the one without the college logo, because in the reflection my hoodie pocket had jingled when I moved. Chapter 4. The pool at 312. The natatorium is beautiful in the way empty churches are. A rectangle of water too blue to be real. White lane lines that promise order until they don't. I clean there some nights for extra cash. You sweep the deck. You skim the leaves from the skylight leaks. You pretend whistling isn't against the rules when no one's listening. The head lifeguard told me 2 things. Never swim alone, and never walk on the covers if they're off. I asked what happens at 312 because everyone mentions that time like it's a locker combination. She said, "The pool remembers lungs." It was past 3 because the clock over the diving boards blinks wrong. I was mopping near lane 3 when the water changed. Not a wave. The water went from flat to attentive. A dog hearing the clink of its leash. The lane lines bowed, each float lifting as if the water under them pulled away. It looked like a chest filling. My mop water leaned toward the gutter as if gravity put on a different hat. The first breath didn't belong to anything human. It was too patient. The second seemed to taste the room. The third lined up with mine. I don't know why I started breathing with it. Slow in through my nose, held to 5, out like in choir. The pool exhaled. My ears popped. Somewhere, a whistle blew, but only in the reflection. At 3:12 exactly, the drain cover at the deep end rattled, and a line of bubbles rose in a perfect column. The water wasn't boiling. It was naming. The bubbles formed letters impossible to read unless you looked with the wrong part of your eyes. I saw my last name and something older. The one my grandmother used when she was mad. I breathed out. The lane lines eased flat as if satisfied. The surface smoothed. The exit reflection reassembled its letters. On the deck near my feet, drops of water spelled D-O-N-T in a neat row that disappeared as fast as it made sense. I put the mop away. The next day, a sign appeared. Pool closed 3:06 to 3:16 for filter backflush. That's a lie. There's no backflush at night. The head lifeguard's whistle hangs on a hook by the door. Sometimes it sways when the air is still. I switched shifts. I still shower in the building, quick and cold. I count in on 5s, out on 7s. And when the water inhales, I leave it the breath. Chapter 5. Records Office. The Locked Drawer. Work study put me in the records office, which is how I learned what a school does with its ghosts. You file them. You give them accession numbers and archive boxes and an HVAC system that never quite wins. Ms. Lang taught me the ritual. White gloves when handling, pencil only. Never lick a finger to turn a page because the pages might lick back. There's a drawer labeled outgoing that doesn't open in daylight. After sundown it does, and only to the width of a letter. Inside are stamped envelopes addressed to places the school has no business remembering. Childhood apartments, orphaned P.O. boxes, towns the river rearranged. Lang said they were mail that never got the chance. During the lockdown, we were told to stay where we were. The campus siren stuttered and then steadied, and Ms. Lang said, "Don't check the drawer." So of course I did. It was open the width of a letter, and an envelope weighted like a tongue behind teeth. Creamy paper, no return address. The postmark date was the year I was born. My hand fit too easily into the gap. The paper was warm like someone had been holding it a long time. It was addressed to me, but at my grandmother's house. The one with the plum tree that tapped the attic window in storms. The stamp showed a bird that went extinct before I knew its name. I didn't open it. I held it under the desk lamp and the red light bled through, just enough to show loops of cursive I recognized. My mother's. She died when I was a sophomore. My name on the front had the flourish she used when she was trying to be brave in front of company. I sat down on the carpet. The siren outside doubled itself. The letter was heavy with more than paper. It smelled like ironed shirts. It trembled like a muscle after carrying. Chapter 6. Tunnel C. The Blue Light. Campus has tunnels. Everyone knows that. Like everyone knows the dining hall chicken is sometimes inedible. The tunnels move steam, water, and the careful lies of institutions. Tunnel C is the long one with chalk arrows on the walls, pointing places that no longer exist. Old lab, print shop, dorm E. At intervals you pass blue emergency phones, relics from a time when the school wanted you to believe help could be summoned by color. We were checking the line after a storm. The ceiling dripped like teeth. My radio hissed with someone else's conversation, then went blank. The blue phone at pillar C12 lit by itself. The receiver lifted off its cradle slowly, like a tired hand. It didn't hit the floor. It hovered at mouth height, waiting. I picked it up because I am the sort of person who answers ringing things. A woman's voice, not young, not old, said hello the way you say it to a room where someone just left. I said hello back. She asked what building I was in. I told her Tunnel C wasn't a building. She asked what level. I said there were no levels. She went quiet in a way that wasn't silence. It was listening shared across a space you couldn't always feel, but knew when it had you. She said she could see me on a camera. She said my jacket was orange. My jacket was blue. She said the exit sign behind me was off. It was on. She said I needed to get to level 3. I told her there was no level 3. She said very quietly, "Then we've already lost you." The line pulsed like a heart trying to keep time with mine. Another phone down the tunnel started ringing. The old trill that sounds like ambition. Then another, farther. Each ring overlapped the last, so the space filled. Chapter 7. The maintenance cart by the river. You see it from the library steps. A 4-wheeled maintenance cart with a plastic windshield gone cloudy and a back seat full of rakes. It points toward the river like it's been told to wait there until someone comes home. When the wind is wrong, the red streamers on the keys move without the branches moving. I have tested this more than once. I don't test it anymore. The cart's logbook says it belongs to grounds, but the initials of who signed it out turned to damp ink kisses a long time ago. On lockdown night, it sat at the same crooked angle and did not frost over even though my breath did. I was walking the trail to feel like air could go somewhere that wasn't my lungs. The sirens turned the sky into a low ceiling. When I drew level, the keys jangled once. It wasn't wind. It was announcement. A small throat clearing before a voice. I said hello because I am rude to machines that forget they are machines. The cart answered by rolling half an inch forward without actually rolling. The pebbles under its tires didn't shift. The air around the keys pricked like the moment you say someone's name in a crowded room and every person who has ever had that name looks up. "I'm not who you want," I said to the cart. From the river, a sound came back that might have been a duck or might have been a person embarrassed to be seen. The streamers lifted toward me like the way a dog points. I reached out before I decided to. The metal of the keys carried a temperature I can only describe as middle. Not warm, not cold. The way a word not in your language feels on your mouth. When I let go, my palms smelled like pennies and rainwater. The trail behind me looked slightly different for a second, like a scene from last year filmed from the same spot. The next afternoon, the cart sat under the service bridge. A freshman with a skateboard asked if it was mine.
Chapter 8.
The theater's dress rehearsal. Every theater has a ghost light. A single bulb on a stand left burning when the stage is empty so no one falls into the pit. And so the building knows it hasn't been abandoned. Ours flickers in iambic pentameter. Da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. Which is fine unless you notice. I was asked to help run deck crew because I can lift and because the director thinks I look like someone who won't steal props. We rehearsed a new student-written piece about disaster drills and love. The stage manager, Tali, is good. The kind of good that means you forget she exists because everything happens right when it should. During the lockdown, we sheltered in the theater. Tali stayed at the calling desk, headset on. She joked she'd call cues for the emergency. Then she started actually calling. Standby LX12. Go. A soft red flushed the exit signs brighter. Standby SFX lockdown. Go. A recorded voice told us to remain calm. After a while, the cues didn't match anything in the board. Standby curtain shake. Go. The curtain moved like breath. Standby footsteps upstage left. Go. Shoes in dust. Tali's eyes unfocused like she was leaving room for someone else's schedule. I looked at the script. There is no curtain shake. There are no footsteps. Who's giving you those? I asked. She tapped her headphones. They're in the channel, she said. That means they're mine. The ghost light hummed agreement. The third time she called go before line, the LED on the cue box flashed the wrong color. Green for stop, red for go, like the world traded meanings. Tali laughed in a way that made my scalp sweat. It's early twice, she said. We don't take it the third time. She folded her hands and let a beat pass that felt like tide. The dispatch room hums the way bees dream. Monitors stack on monitors until the air has edges. During the lockdown, I watched hallways I have never walked in daylight. Officer Palomo gave me the job of note the weird, not the crime. On feed C12, outside the registrar, a person I know very well walked toward camera. Me. Wearing the clothes I had left at home. The timestamp said tomorrow. I said Palomo's name the way a seatbelt says click. He rolled over, adjusted the color, frowned like he'd been expecting this. Playback delay, he said. We watched me, tomorrow, try the registrar door, find it locked, check my phone, knock exactly once and then twice, then leave frame. I was so ordinary it hurt. Do we warn me? Thoughtful, I asked. Palomo said, we don't warn anyone. We just don't open doors when we are already inside them. He wrote the rule on a sticky. If you see yourself enter a room you're in, don't touch the knob. Other feeds followed suit. The library stairwell showed wet footprints that would exist in 6 hours. The theater showed the ghost light off when it was on. The pool showed a swimmer-shaped absence, as if the future had already decided to be tired. At one point, feed D07, the tunnel by the blue phone, showed a woman with an orange jacket putting a receiver down. The timestamp again. Tomorrow. Palomo's jaw clicked. She said she didn't have orange, he murmured. He wrote another sticky. Don't count landings. When the system resynced, it did so silently. The monitors looked boring again. I went home and hung a jacket on the back of my chair. Orange, a hand-me-down. It made my room look like someone else was already there.
Chapter 10.
Chapel keys and final all clear. The chapel is older than the campus. At night it smells like old wood and wax and cataloged apologies. I was there at the end, turning chairs, checking windows. When the all clear finally came through on phones, the chapel chimed once, all by itself. A real bell sound in a building with no working bells. The exit sign over the side door clicked off with the rest of campus, and yet its reflection in the window kept glowing. On the altar sat a ring of keys Father Reyes claims not to own. I shouldn't have touched them. They were warm. Each key's teeth had a pattern like tiny skylines. I picked one with a red tag that said 6B, and another with a blue tag that said C-12. Metal remembers. A draft moved through the nave like pages turning. On cue, a cue I did not call, the side door. I could have left through the dark exit and followed its glowing reflection. Instead, I locked the door with the red tag key. Even though the tag said 6B and not chapel, the lock accepted it with a small shiver. The reflection of the exit sign kept burning for 3 breaths, and then stopped. The bell chimed again. I put the keys back on the altar and backed away. Outside, the campus smelled like rain coming and wires cooling. Later, when people asked what happened that night, we said, drills, rumors, the usual theater. We left out the parts where the pipes count you and the water breathes your name. The rules aren't written anywhere official. We write them in margins and on the backs of our hands. Proceed only if you can see it. Singles answer singles. If your reflection is late, let it go first. When the water inhales, leave it the breath. Do not voice letters meant for the past. Don't count landings that don't belong to you. Keys belong to names, and names oblige you. If a queue calls itself, ask who it's calling for. If you see yourself entering a room you're already in, don't touch the knob. If the exit goes dark and you still see it, don't follow. I don't know if the all clear ever really came. But sometimes, passing the river, I hear keys and think about new names. And I count breaths the way someone taught me, without ever using their voice. You've been listening to Echoes of Fear. If one of these rules ever saves you someday, don't thank us. Write it down somewhere. If you enjoyed this story, click the like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more. New dark stories every week.